Welcome to Midco Sports Magazine, the inside and the insight on some of our favorite stories from 2014. We started the show 2 years ago, maybe. We just wanted to try it out. We used it as a quarterly show. We were going to do one every 3 months, just to tell stories, right? Why do we do this show? Why do you guys like doing this show?
Well, I'll tell you, the more and more sports becomes a business, the more formal it gets, it's nice to come back and realize why these people behind it are doing what they do. And that's what's fun about Midco Sports Magazine. Instead of the 2 minutes you get on some news programs, you get 4, 5, 6 minutes to really go deeper and explain these stories and the people behind them.
You're covering high school stuff all week. You're covering the Coyotes all week, doing highlights and scores and grinding it out like that. And it's fun. We all love doing that. That's why we're in this business. But why? Why do this show? Why do you like doing stories like this?
I mean, like Jason said, it's the people. I mean, that's really what makes all this interesting. And to me, what I think is neat is this show focuses on people in this area. These are your neighbors, people that you go to school, go to church with, that are going out and doing these extraordinary things and using their creativity, using the talents they've been given. It's fun to get a little bit deeper into that and, spend some more time bringing to light what is happening right next door.
It's crazy how many cool stories you can find.
Yeah.
A little bit of scratching that you do, and one thing links to another and links to another, and you've got a ton of great stories. And
you talked about age a little bit. You've got a little more perspective now. You appreciate more, not just the highlights and things like that.
I was a Sports Center junkie, through my 20s, and just worried about the highlights, and you get a little more perspective. I'm getting close to 40 now, and you really appreciate the people and the hard work that goes behind all these sports.
And there's a lot of work. Alex is what, 17, 18 years old? But you've still got the perspective, don't you? I mean, you like the same reasons Jason does.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I think it's, there are lots of great athletes out there in this country, and it's easy to focus on that, on just greatness, but there's more to it than that. And I think really what makes sports a big part of our lives, obviously these are the careers that we've chosen, but we enjoy this field of work so much because it is the behind-the-scenes stuff that makes it interesting.
And there's still some of these stories are about great athletes. Still,
right? Of course, yeah.
I mean, we've talked about Billy Mills. We've talked about a lot of great athletes, but a lot of them are overcoming obstacles. We love 2 or 3 of those kind of episodes a year. One of them, who is Tristen Bender? This is a great example of a story for the show.
I was out just literally shooting a 9-man football game in Canastota, and I did a double take as Hanson was snapping the ball. I said, that can't be right. The kid has one arm. And sure enough, I walked over to the bench. Their center has one full arm, his left arm. And so I said, there has to be a story behind this. And did a lot of research, talked to Tristan himself, his family, and found out there's a lot more to this story than just a one-armed football player. And I edited the story, I shot the story, and I know the story up and down, but when it gets to the point in the story where the sheriff and the priest come up to the front door and he finds out his sister passed away, I still get emotional right now talking about it, and every time I see it, it just gets me.
And there's humor in these stories too, though. Talk about when you went out to shoot the story and how he saved you initially.
Me and my producer, Nate Burdine, we went out on a gravel road to find his farm in the middle of central South Dakota near Alexandria, and I thought we had a 4-wheel drive vehicle. Turns out not so much, and I got stuck in about 4 feet of snow, and we had no idea what to do, so we called Tristan up. I knew he had to be close, within a mile or two. He comes out with this truck, takes charge of the situation, puts some chains down, takes his arm, literally digs us out of the snow, and then we went and shot the interview with him. That was the first time I actually had talked to him, and you knew right then he was a special guy, and he turns negative situations into positive situations all the time, and that's what this story was all about.
All right, a lot of stories are emotional like that, and people have overcome great obstacles. You did a story that was, I'm trying to figure out how to describe it. It's kind of whimsical. It was kind of fun. It was like this big summer camp where everybody was just having a great time in Seward, Nebraska, in this huge pole vaulting event on the street in Seward, Nebraska. Tell us about this.
Yeah, we kind of talked about how it's the state fair meets the state track meet. It's just this great combination of.
Where'd you hear about this first?
I had worked with one of the founders when I worked for the University of Sioux Falls a few years ago, and he would. Coach Gene Brooks, who used to coach the University of Sioux Falls track and field, now is the Dean of Students at Concordia University, would always tell us every summer, like, hey, you guys, if you're not doing anything over the 4th of July, you need to come down to Seward and just watch this thing. They do the street pole vault on Independence Day in the 4th of July city of America. And it's a small town of about 8,000 people that just blossoms into this metropolis of 40,000 overnight for one day a year. And they do this pole vault in the streets, and they bring in people from all different ages, all parts of the country. And they've done it for 25 years, and he was so enthusiastic about it. And like, I need to go check this out. And it was, sometimes you have a mental image of
when I heard about it, I thought, it might be kind of cool, but that doesn't sound like a story that would fit this show. And then I watched it, and it was great.
Yeah, it exceeded expectations. I mean, like really, and Gene had talked it up a lot. And when I got there, it was everything and more. 2 pole vault pits lining the streets, and the whole town is just so decked out for this and is so excited. And one year, Jason Berry, who helped found this and has kept it going all these years, had mentioned that one year they just couldn't do it for whatever reason. The weather was bad and they just didn't have enough help, and so they canceled the pole vault competition. And the town called them up and said, "No, we need the pole vaulters. You can't back out of this." And so they've been doing it now, and this will be their 25th year this coming summer. A couple of years ago, they had Jeremy Scott, who was a Olympian for the United States national team in 2012 in Great Britain. I mean, they've had people who are national champions, Olympic champions, and they had put on a great show, and people who have no idea what's going on will stop and watch for a couple hours with their cotton candy. It's a great time. I had a blast shooting the story.
One story you guys are working on together that will air sometime in 2015. You went to Ames, Iowa for a football game this past fall to catch who? There's a bunch of brothers that are football guys. Who are you talking about?
Yeah, the Farniok boys, Tom and Derek, who were Sioux Falls, Washington offensive linemen a couple of years ago. Tom now is starting center for the last 3 years for Iowa State. His younger brother Derek, who has been playing tackle for Oklahoma. And the fact that these two guys from Sioux Falls would be meeting together in a Big 12 football matchup, it was a great event to be a part of, and really fun to get to see their whole family come together. And just that it became more than just a game, but this family reunion of sorts in the end zone after the game was over.
Yeah, because especially with Tom now being his 5th-year senior, this was it for him. You could see the emotion was high. Just a handful of players from our entire viewing area of North and South Dakota have an opportunity to play in the Big 12, and 2 of them coming from the same family is pretty crazy. And they're built for this, man. This is a family of offensive linemen, if I've ever seen one. And you don't get much attention to offensive linemen, but if these guys were backs, can you imagine the publicity they'd be getting? So many players from the same family making it at that big level. And there's 2 more coming up. Yeah. I mean, don't forget Matt Farniok. He's just a junior at Washington High School right now in Sioux Falls. He's getting more attention than both those 2 did as far as high school, as a recruit in high school. So, and then there's another younger brother yet coming up who's just a freshman. So a lot of talent in that family.
All right. And just lastly with you guys, another show we've got coming up here in February of 2015 is college recruiting. Colleges recruiting high school kids. That's going to be fun. We're going to see all the aspects of it from the high school kids' point of view, the college coach's point of view, the compliance, all the crazy rules that go into recruiting. And you guys are working on this story, right?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, that's something where you hear about this so much, and certainly even in the last 5 years or so, how big this is and how it's become something that people, that's all they do. I mean, a coach is dedicated to recruiting and making these phone calls and making these trips, and from all, like you said, from all different aspects, from the high school student's perspective of what that's like to be bombarded with calls and emails and texts and with social media, all those kind of things. It's going to be really interesting to dig into that from some different angles.
What I didn't know, and have been surprised time and time again since I've really started recruiting or following recruiting, is the stress level that these high school kids are going through, trying to decide if somebody wants them, if somebody doesn't want them. It sounds like a high school relationship, but it kind of is more like this little dance they're playing with these colleges, and the colleges are playing the same game with them. So we hope to portray that in the February edition of the show.
It's complicated.
It's complicated. Yes.
It is. We'll try to make sense of it coming up on that recruiting show. Welcome back to Midco Sports Magazine, talking about our favorite stories from 2014. And fellas, welcome. Great working with you guys on this program. I asked the other guys why they like the stories, doing these kind of stories for Midco Sports Magazine. Why do you guys like doing these?
For me, it's the people. I think just the people that you get to meet, when we're out in the field, and people that kind of give you that window into their lives. Obviously, something they're very passionate about, or something that's very personal to them, and they allow you in and share that story with you and allow you to be the one to tell it to everybody else.
And you find that more with normal people like this that we're doing these stories on, right? They're not professional athletes that are just sick of the media, that they're willing to share these stories.
That's a big part of it, I think, is that they're not used to the limelight and not used to being out there in public and having everything kind of displayed for them. There's something that's very personal about it, not only in just the story itself, but just in the connection that you get with these people, and because they feel like anyone you might meet on the street, and a lot of times it's, those stories are some of the best ones, is the ones that you don't know are there unless you scratch a little bit below the surface.
Yeah, and they're pretty unique stories as well. And I just like personally the creative freedom just to be able to have the time to tell these kinds of stories. I mean, these aren't things that we necessarily have to turn around in a day or a week. We can spend months at a time on a specific story to make sure we tell it as uniquely as possible and as creatively as possible.
And you get to go to some cool places.
Yes.
We went to California for a couple of these stories. Talk about that trip a little bit.
That was pretty remarkable. It was pretty awesome getting to go to California in the middle of the summer, and we got a couple of cool stories out there. The first one was with Jessi Combs, a Black Hills native who not a lot of people maybe outside of here really know about, except she became this reality TV star, and she's just, a bad chick on a motorcycle or a four-wheeler or whatever racing mobile you want to call it. She just gets out there and she loves riding. We went to the San Bernardino and we saw her at the Glen Helen Raceway, and she was just hauling tail.
Very cool trip. We get out there and we get out to Long Beach at 10 at night. It's dark out. You think of
Thanks to
Long
our
Beach,
flight delay.
Well, yeah, you're thinking of Snoop Dogg, and you're thinking of Gone in 60 Seconds, that movie at Long Beach. But it was very cool, and she kind of lives in this. It's an apartment with a garage attached to it, where she does some of the hits for the reality TV shows and restores motorcycles and trucks and things back there. But she was very cool, as were a lot of people on this trip. But Jay, you get this story about Jessi Combs. What's one word you would describe her, Jessi Combs?
Limitless, I guess. I mean, there was no detailed plan. That was what was so interesting about her, is I'm not sure she ever knew exactly what she wanted to do with herself. I know she kind of pinpointed some interests in the racing. She tried the snowboarding thing for a while, all the cars and all the fabricating and things like that. She liked the building part of it as much as she liked the driving part of things. And but I think she kind of let life happen, and a lot of this stuff has just fallen right into her lap. And it's because she's extremely talented, but it's also because of how much drive she has to be successful and to be the best at her craft. And that's something that stands out to me is just her, just how much she wants to be good at every avenue of what her life is now. She's not spread herself so thin that the racing has taken a hit, or the TV thing has taken a hit, or any other part of her life. She dedicates that same kind of passion to each and every aspect of what she's doing right now, and it's what makes her story so incredible.
She's from Rapid City, kind of took that Black Hills mentality that I don't care what people think, I'm going to go out here, and she's really made it work. She's got the pink hair, she's got a great attitude.
Got the land speed record.
And the land speed record, yes, of all these things, and just continues to do great things, and she's going to keep working on other land speed records.
Yeah, in fact, she's already got her sights set on the next one, and that is to be the fastest woman on three wheels, and a woman named Kitty O'Neill set that record back in 1977. She went 512 miles an hour. Jessi wants to go faster than that, and those two actually got a chance to meet in early December and talk about that, and Kitty apparently gave her stamp of approval on Jessi's attempt to try and go and break that record. So she's got her sights set already. It's just kind of checking the next thing off that list. She's got a giant bucket list, and she wants to do it all. And one of the things that I think is very, very cool about her, and there's so many of them, but one that really stands out is how much she wants to be a role model for other women. I've seen a hashtag that she's used on Twitter, Girls Can Too. She recognizes that she is a public figure, and then she can have some influence on younger women and women of all ages really, and she's using that to try and teach them that they can do it too.
She was great, kind of running around out in California with her hair on fire, setting speed records. There was another great story we got out of there, a little more mellow than that.
Yes, a lot more mellow.
With a guy who had some South Dakota connections named Kent Katich.
Yes, Kent Katich, not extremely well known around these parts. He probably spent a year and a half, 2 years in South Dakota. He played for the Coyote basketball team in the early 1980s, But he left college, and we sort of followed him and told his story about this whirlwind journey. He went to Italy to become a model, then he went to Sweden to play overseas basketball, and one of his old Coyote teammates introduced him to yoga, and he started adopting that practice. This was in, the late 80s, early 90s, where yoga was still thought of as only a feminine thing, only something that females do. But Kent started developing his practice, and then he had one client in particular, Bobby Hanson, his old high school teammate, who played on the world champion Chicago Bulls in the early 90s. And then through Bobby Hanson, he kept making connection after connection with coaches and agents. And now he teaches yoga to the most famous players in the NBA. We got him talking with Kevin Love.
Yeah.
And he works with Blake Griffin, Dirk Nowitzki. He's the LA Clippers yoga coach for the entire team. But the cool part about that is we talked to Kevin Love the day that free agency started. And he was involved in all these trade rumors, and I honestly was worried that with all this stuff, he wasn't going to want to talk to us. I mean, we set the parameters that we're here to talk about yoga. We're not here to ask if you're going to get traded to Cleveland or anything like that.
But he had his Timberwolves shorts on.
He did have his Timberwolves shorts on.
The day he got traded to Cleveland.
Yes, and well, it wasn't that specific day, but later that week was when the deal sort of got consummated. So I'm sure he took a call from LeBron right after we got done interviewing him or something like that. But it was cool that he was willing to sit down with us in LA and talk about what Kent Katich meant to him.
But Love's an LA guy, went to UCLA, which was right 3 blocks from the campus.
Yep.
We went to Katich's office, his studio, in Bel Air, beautiful neighborhood. And Katich is kind of to us is the cliche California lifestyle. Drive us around in his Prius.
Battery powered.
Yep, we go to UCLA. Who did we see drive by?
Oh, he claimed we saw Kevin Durant drive by.
Kevin Durant was there.
We missed him, but apparently he saw him.
But Katich knows him. I mean, and he's just gotten this in with yoga to all these NBA superstars. But he's got a little bit of South Dakota in him. He's from Des Moines, Iowa, but he has settled in beautifully out in California.
Yeah, and the coolest part of that story was sort of the last line of his story where he said, I never really enjoyed my time in South Dakota. He freely admits it, but he says it's what led him on his path. He left the Yotes after a year because he didn't like the coaching change, and the new coach and him just didn't get along. So he not only left the team, but he just dropped out of college altogether, then went on this journey. He mentioned he was homeless for a little bit, sleeping on couches in cars for a little bit. So that progression from the early 80s to where he is now, from going an ex-college basketball player, couch surfing, to teaching yoga to the wealthiest NBA players.
He was a model in between there.
He was a model in between for Giorgio Armani, which happened through some random luck, as he said. So it's a very unique journey that has its roots in South Dakota.
Yeah, all these stories, we try to find that little connection. And same thing with Jessi. She talked freely about how Rapid City influenced her to go follow her dreams.
She loves South Dakota. She makes
so she and Kent are opposites.
Yeah, well, I mean that's it. I mean, but she's from here, and this is home to her, and so she still has family in that area, and she speaks very highly of kind of like almost like a hidden gem, referring to it as such. And this is a woman that has made her living in California, and obviously that life out there is a whole different world. But she anticipated as she was going through her education that she was going to end up back in Rapid City building motorcycles. She said that, and she would live here had all these other things not fallen right back into place, because this is home, and this is where she feels like she belongs. But at the same time, again, she's just allowed life to kind of take control, and she's just kind of been along for the ride in a lot of ways.
It's been so fun to get to know these people just for a day or two. But.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've been communicating with Kent pretty much the entire year. We tried setting up this story for months, and he's still asking about it. And so it's really cool to make these kinds of connections and to see, again, as you said, finding that unique connection, that unique angle that personalizes the story to this area where we broadcast, but also to tell their stories in the most unique way possible.
Right. Good work, fellas. Looking forward to what you come up with in 2015. Thanks for watching Midco Sports Magazine. We hope you check us out in 2015. A new episode on the first Tuesday of every month. And as we go out here, some words from local writer Ben Schumacher, together with some pictures put together by our producer Josh Muntz, that kind of capture the spirit of what we're doing here on Midco Sports Magazine.
Why do we compete?
It is our nature.
To endure, to succeed, to never stop striving.
To meet the challenges of the day head on. To pour our souls into the effort. To grow. To be better.
To put forth all we have, our very hearts, to the cause of greatness.
To never stop, never settle.
Never back down.
Why do we compete?
Because there is no good enough.
Because we'll never know who we are until we've cast aside who we aren't.
Weakness is not in the defeated. It's in those who have never tried.
Failure is not in the loss, but in never having played.
True victory is in the challenge itself.
In the midst of the pounding,
The burning,
and the passion to succeed.
the greatest conquest of all, that of the competitor over oneself.
There is the purpose.
There is the truth. That is why we compete. These are the stories on Midco Sports Magazine, Tuesday nights at 8:30.